Welcome back to Proxam, everybody, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a surprise video. I didn't actually expect to do this, but I did want to cover it because I think it's important for the Craftworld Eldar community to know what's going to be happening coming January. So we just got revealed by GW that the Arks of Omen Grand Tournament Mission Pack is here, and it's going to be coming in January. And we knew about this for a while, but we didn't exactly know what some of the things in it were going to be, and now we have a little bit of a sneak peek on it. So we're going to be looking at this with a Craftworld Eldar perspective, and we're going to be looking at what is good about it and what maybe is a little bit problematic that we'll have to kind of just wait and see how it turns out. So quick overview of the video. We're going to be looking at the revealed changes. We're going to be talking about the impacts and implications for the Craftworld Eldar. A couple of you have already mentioned in my comment sections that there are some implications with this that I'll go into. And I'm going to go over my final thoughts and predictions for the upcoming expansion. So first off, we have a new mega detachment. Basically, this combines all the best aspects of the previous detachments into one, so you no longer have to pay command points to select different detachments and things like that. This is going to be great as players who want to go more heavy into fast attack or elites or heavy support don't have to spend those extra command points on those specific detachments. The other cool thing about this is that Lords of War are no longer their own really expensive detachment. So you get up to three, you can get at least up to 3 Lords of War in your list. If you choose another compulsory, or if you choose the Lords of War compulsory, you can actually go up to 6, which is really cool. So basically, unless you're playing Imperial or Chaos Knights, you can have up to 6 Lords of War in your army, which is really kind of a neat thing that they allowed for. So any of you trying to successfully run a Wraith Knight army or something like that, you can go for it. I don't think that's competitive, but at least it's there. At least it's an option now, right? And this does open up, things like Craftworld traits and things like that for those Lords of War. So you might see Wraith Knights with Uthway traits and stuff like that. So there's a little bit to talk about there. I'm going to probably make a future video covering that. It's piqued my interest, definitely. I know that a lot of players aren't really going to be seriously considering that, but I have to say it does seem really fun to run, 4 or 5 Wraith Knights and still have command points and stuff like that to use in the game. So going to be looking at that. Also, the cool thing is that this chart is kind of spam proof. And what I mean by that is you're still limited to the rule of 3, so you can't take more than 3 units of any one type. So you can't take more than 3 units of swooping hawks or warp spiders, but you can take up to 6 maximum units in that slot. So if you want to go more heavy into fast attack, you can take up to 6 in that slot. You're still limited on flyers. You still can only have up to 2 flyers, so you're no longer going to see, flyer spam or anything like that, which is good. I think people are over flyer spam, me especially. I mean, as somebody who was playing very actively in 6th edition competitively, flyers are, to me, I'm glad they're relegated to only 2. Let's just put it that way. And there's a lot to say about this detachment. And the other thing is that you can actually take up to 3 additional elite characters. And this is really cool because that essentially means that you can take things like warlocks without having to worry about them costing, a slot on your roster. Now, I know that for each Farseer you take, you can have a free warlock anyway, but this means you can just take more warlocks and not have to worry about it. You can have 2 Farseers in your list, you can have 3 warlocks, and you don't have to worry about them taking an additional slot from your elite choices. So that's pretty cool about this detachment as well. So I think this is actually going to be a very good thing for the game. I think it simplifies things and it's going to make things easier for players getting into it to understand. And also the other thing I wanted to mention is not only can you take more things like fast attack, right? So Eldar players can take up to 6 fast attack now if they wanted to, which is great because I always felt like I was limited in the amount of fast attack options I could field. And Eldar being a very fast attack oriented faction, that always felt bad. But also, you don't have to take troops anymore. They're completely optional. So although as an Eldar player, I do recommend that anybody trying to create a list does include at least one unit of Rangers in their army. And that's just because, you know, you need to screen out your forces. You need to be able to have something to prevent deep striking. You need to have something to prevent enemy advanced deployment units from hemming you in and closing you off. And a single unit of Rangers should be enough in most cases to do this, alongside your other more expendable units like Vipers. Should be enough to prevent some sort of, you know, kind of surround or something like that early in the game with advanced positions. But that basically frees up a lot of points for other units. So more fast attack, more heavy support, or elite options are now becoming more available. So that is also extremely cool, and I think it's going to boost the optimization of a lot of Eldar armies out there. Oh, and real quick, something I forgot to mention, but strategic reserves are now completely free, which is pretty awesome. I think that, you know, a lot of factions are going to benefit greatly off of this, especially Eldar. We like to put a lot of stuff in reserve, so now we can put stuff into reserve using other means. If we don't want to use, for example, Phantasm or Webway Strike, we have a free way of putting units into strategic reserve. So I think that's going to be a big boon for us as well. And for a lot of armies in general, I think you're going to see more people utilizing strategic reserves, which is always a cool thing. I think it's a positive, but we'll have to see. I mean, you know, it's like everything else. If it's free, how many units can you really put in there? You can put up to half your force. We might even see a return of armies using a full kind of strategic reserve strategy. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see, but it is a possibility. So moving on to the other reveal, the heroic support. So for one command point, you can actually include another unit that would normally be limited to one per detachment. So this could be a Demon Prince, this could be an Autarch, etc. So this isn't so applicable to Craftworld Eldar, but again, when are we ever going to be fielding two Autarchs in the same army? Probably never, but I'm sure Tyranids and Chaos are going to absolutely love it. But here's the thing about this. The thing I like about this is that you don't pay an extra command point for each additional. It's a max of one. So you can't have 4 Hive Tyrants running around there, thank God. It's not like, you know, you can take 4 of them or 4 Demon Princes or anything like that. There's a max of 2, so your opponent's only going to be able to take 2 of those in a single detachment, which basically is kind of the same as before, because they would just take, you know, something like 2 patrols or something like that, and they would take their, you know, 2 Demon Princes or 2 Hive Tyrants anyway. But they are going to be saving points on troops, so you do have to also consider that a lot of armies now are going to probably forego troops. Not every army. Objective secured is still very important. I can see armies like Necron, I can see armies like Sisters of Battle, etc., and Leagues of Votann still using their troops choices because they are fantastic. But for armies like Craftworld Eldar, who their troop choices are more, well, let's just put it this way, not very helpful in achieving what the army is good at. So for example, Guardians, everyone knows Guardians. They're a cool unit, they look cool, but do they really help an Eldar player achieve, in most cases, what they want to do in the game? Probably not. I think there's a few options for Eldar Guardians as far as, you know, what you can use them for. They're great at screening, they do okay damage, they're really not good at holding objectives, and neither are Rangers, right? So not having to take 3 units of those, I think, is really going to help us, again, optimize our lists a little bit. The other reveal that we got in the news was the fact that there is going to be new secondary objectives, which we all assumed, but each faction is now going to be getting 3 unique secondary objectives in addition to the normal ones, and I have no clue what these are yet for Eldar. They haven't revealed that. They've revealed one for Salamanders and I think World Bearers, which, based on their, you know, missions that they revealed to us, now this could be different, we'll have to see the whole picture, but it seems like the missions, or I should say the secondary objectives, are much more geared towards the army's playstyle, which is really cool, right? Salamanders, if you look at them, they're getting bonus points for killing things with melters or flamers, they're getting bonus points for holding objectives and things like that, or killing enemies on their objectives. So that's a very good one, I think, the Promethean Creed. And Adorn the Canvas Electic, I think it's called. Yeah, Electic. Sorry, Eclectic. I had no idea what that was for a second. But basically, really plays to the style of World Bearers, being able to be very brutal in close combat and things like that. So My guess would be that all of these secondary objectives play very much to the strengths of the faction and are fairly good. That would be my guess. However, who really knows, right? We haven't seen the Eldar secondaries. We haven't seen the other army secondaries. And this is something we're really going to have to wait and see on because, it could be very much the same story as this current expansion, which is some factions have great secondaries and they're able to just dominate the tournament scene, dominate games, outscore you. And then there's going to be factions that just don't have very great secondaries at all and really struggle to actually score on the battlefield. So, some of the factions that come to mind, Craftworld Eldar, are, really not known for having the greatest secondary objectives. Again, very strong faction. I think Craftworld Eldar has what it takes to compete because of their faction special rules. But as far as the secondary objective game goes, they reliably underscore on secondary objectives more often than not because they're just harder to achieve in Nephilim missions. And that's the other thing, right? The missions themselves may actually change. So we're not going to know the full picture until we actually play on a board, until we're actually looking at the missions and looking at all of the secondary objectives. And, there's a lot of other armies that struggle right now as far as the secondary game, like AdMech and, regular vanilla Space Marines also struggle very much. So it would be good to see everybody getting really strong secondary traits that are actually applicable in most of the missions. But again, we're going to have to wait and see because honestly, GW doesn't have the best track record with balancing these kind of things. So if everybody is getting really powerful secondary traits, that's fantastic. That play to the strengths of the faction. I'm all for it. Absolutely. I think it helps with immersion and a bunch of other stuff. But there's always something in there that's overlooked. And I hope there's not some sort of thing where a faction can just score all of their secondary points within the first few turns of the game, like Necrons can now and stuff like that. So really hope that that's not the case, but we'll just have to wait and see. So what are the implications and impacts for the Craftworld Eldar? So I think that you're going to see things becoming much more flexible as far as your detachments go. So this will allow our faction to focus on what it does best and fully optimize our lists for that purpose. I think we're going to see a return of themed armies. They're much more viable now with the new detachment. I know that some of you are thinking, oh God, rates are still not competitive. They may not be super competitive. We'll have to kind of see what they change on the points front. Because again, if they change rates to 30 points or 35 points a model instead of, 40 points a model, I think we're going to see a return of Wraith competitive lists. I really do. I think, well, if they're 30 points a model, I think we're really going to see a return of them. I think people are going to absolutely go crazy on them. If we see 35 points, we're going to see a little bit more rates probably, which is a great thing, right? But either way, I think you are going to see more armies that are themed and skewed in a certain direction. So because you don't have to spend a bunch of command points to field a full Wraith or full Wind Rider list, I think you're going to see more people more comfortably wanting to do things like a themed Samhain army, right? With maybe not the Samhain traits, but maybe a custom Craftworld list with a lot of Wind Riders and a lot of maybe Shining Spears and stuff like that. Or a Wraith army where you have, a lot of Wraith Guard for your elites and a lot of Wraith Lords as well. And again, I think that even though people are saying, I don't think Eldar are going to field any troops anymore, I think that they're going to field less troops, but not quite nothing. I think you're still going to see a unit of Rangers in most competitive lists just because they're really great at screening and they're good for the objective game based on what those objectives are. I mean, right now they're really good for things like scout the enemy, but of course, if those objectives kind of change and Rangers don't get that special bonus on scout the enemy, you're probably not going to see as many Rangers. My guess would be people are still going to field that one unit for screening and advanced positions, but that's about it. And I think my final thoughts and predictions about this new expansion are that, the new detachment chart is very simple and flexible and especially helpful for our faction of specialists. Again, we're really powerful in the fast attack category. If we can maximize that power, we can be a lot stronger as a faction. If we can take up to 6 fast attacks, we're going to be doing a lot more damage a lot quicker than a lot of armies can do and deal with out there. I think that the fact that each faction is getting 3 secondary objectives that are unique in addition to the main ones could still be problematic. I'm hoping they balance it well and play to the strengths of each faction well and don't overdo it. but we'll see what they do there. I think based on what I've seen so far, those objectives look pretty balanced. But then again, those are the ones they're showing us, right? They're not going to show us the problematic ones. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see on that. And lastly, again, like I've said a couple times in this video, I think that there's going to be far less troops in the game in general, and even more so for Craftworld Eldar. I think that's one of the predictions. So you're not going to see as many people, unless they have to, fielding troops. So you will still see armies like Imperial Guard and Thousand Sons and stuff like that fielding troops, because their troops are actually awesome, right? They have awesome troop choices. You'll still see those, but you're just going to see less of it from other factions. So in conclusion, I'm really excited for the new expansion. When I first saw it, I was really stoked by the detachment chart. I think there's going to be a lot of cool things we as Eldar players can do with that to optimize our armies even further. And I do, though, still have concerns about the secondary objectives. Now, my original opinion on secondary objectives was that they should all be less strong in general. But it seems like GW's focus is going to be more on creating stronger secondaries for every faction versus weakening the secondaries of the strongest factions currently. So we'll just see how that kind of plays out. I think there's room for error there, to be honest, but we'll see. I think either way, there's going to be balance issues. There's going to be something the players find that's broken, like always. GW is going to have to go back and fix it and tweak it accordingly in future, rules updates and stuff. But, we really haven't seen these yet, so I don't know. This is just entirely speculation. What I do know is that just based on what I've seen so far, it looks good. It looks solid. I think that, a lot of players are going to be really happy with the changes. But again, we're just going to have to wait and see. There's always something out there that people find, right? And, there's always an evolution of the meta that develops every time a new expansion comes out. So a lot to look forward to. And again, looking forward to the expansion and maybe more leaks in the future. We'll see in the coming days. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching. I'm trying to get that Imperial Guard kind of battle report done and, completed for you guys by the end of the weekend. But it is Christmas time. I am busy with other things, so I'm hoping to get it out. But if I don't, I'll for sure have it out by next week so that you can, kind of watch the video as you're opening your gifts, as you're opening your Wave Serpents and, different Warhammer presents, if you guys actually still get those. So anyway, all right, everybody, peace out. See you guys later and have a good one, you guys. Happy holidays.